Get your brooms out, Orioles fans. It's a sweep as the Orioles take all three from the Detroit Tigers this weekend and have won 6 games in a row. I'll recap the great starting pitching, the clutch hitting, and the 2 walk-off wins coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, April 24th, 2023, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb. And coming up on today's episode, we're going to recap the Orioles' first sweep of the season, at least in a 3-game series, as they took all three close games, but 3 wins over the Detroit Tigers this weekend. And the way we're going to do this episode is take a look at each game via the starting pitcher, because the 3 starters for the Orioles this weekend, they were the stars. And I know they had 2 walk-off wins, and we'll get to that, but I wanted to focus on the 3 starters in Tyler Wells, Kyle Gibson, and Grayson Rodriguez. So that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your baseball franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game. So it's 6 wins in a row for the Baltimore Orioles as they sweep the weekend series against the Tigers after sweeping that quick little 2-game set against the Nats in DC. And what a weekend it was for the Orioles. They get a walk-off win with the walk-off fielder's choice off the bat of Adam Frazier, with Ryan Mountcastle sliding into home just ahead of the tag on Friday night to beat the Tigers 2-1. Then they pull away a little bit more on Saturday, winning that game 5-1. And then they come back. They were almost no hit. Eduardo Rodriguez had a perfect game going for a while on Sunday, but the Orioles come back, and in the 10th, they walk it off. Adam Frazier scoring on a wild pitch to once again beat the Tigers 2-1. The O's take all 3 games. They have now won 6 in a row. They have won 10 of their last 12, and they are taking advantage of this soft spot part of the schedule. It started with that 4-game series against Oakland. I talked about it earlier on the podcast. The Orioles started with game 1 against Oakland a couple weeks ago, a 22-game stretch where, quite frankly, the best team they were playing is the Red Sox, who they start a 3-game series with tonight in Baltimore. The Red Sox are basically playing just above 500 baseball at this point. They were playing all bad teams. They have played 12 of those 22 games so far. They are 10-2. That is how you beat the teams you're supposed to beat and get ahead record-wise. 14-7, remember, the Orioles came within 3 games of the playoffs last year, and they started the year 7-14. Now they're 14-7. That's a little bit of a difference right there through your first 21 games. But we're recapping the series sweep on today's episode and wanted to kind of break it down game by game here on the pod, but really focusing on the starting pitching performances. So let's start with Friday's game. 2-1 win for the Orioles over the Tigers. And we start with Tyler Wells, who, listen, Tyler Wells is got to be one of the more interesting pitchers in Major League Baseball, because he has good stuff, but he's not going to strike out 10, 11 batters in a game with that stuff. It's just not how he pitches, especially not since he's been moved to the starting rotation. He's efficient. He gets through innings. He gets his strikeouts when he needs them, but he throws a lot of strikes. And that's what he did once again on Friday when he set a new career high for innings pitched. Tyler Wells, with what you could argue is the best start by any Orioles starter so far this season. He goes 7 scoreless innings on Friday night, allowing just 3 hits with 5 strikeouts, just 1 walk. It took him just 95 pitches to throw 7 innings. Quite frankly, if the Orioles had somewhat of a cushion in this game, remember, when Wells left the game after the top of the 7th, it was a 0-0 game. And even when Austin Hayes hits a homer in the bottom of the 7th and puts the O's up 1-0, it's still 1-0 in the 8th when Brandon Hyde has to make a decision to whether he keeps Wells out there at 95 pitches or goes to the bullpen. If it's 6-7-0, Wells probably has a chance to go 8 in that game. but he was just ridiculous out there for the Orioles. Just 4 hard hit balls against him in 7 innings of work. He now has a 2.70 ERA on the season. He got 14 whiffs, which was a season high for Tyler Wells. And really, it was the changeup for me. I mean, that was the pitch for me that took Wells to another level on Friday night. Now, he mixed his pitches well. He threw 5 different pitches, and he threw at least 10 of each of his 5 pitches out of 95. 37 four-seamers, 21 sliders, 15 changeups, 12 cutters, and 10 curveballs. But he made that changeup work in just 15 pitches. Now, he didn't have any called strikes on the changeup, but that was okay because he didn't really throw it for strikes many times, but it still worked out. He got 5 whiffs on 10 swings on that changeup. That is a very, very good rate. His highest amount of whiffs of his 14 were those 5 on the changeup. That thing basically looked like a screwball at times. And it's kind of floating in there, 85, 86. Nice difference between his 4-seam fastball, which was 93, 95 on Friday night. But that thing just would float in and it would just glide away from left-handed hitters. And they just kept swinging and missing. And that made his stuff different, really different on Friday night. And the 4-seamer still did its job, and it was in the strike zone, and the slider was good. He got 3 whiffs on the cutter, which was really nice to see. And he was in the strike zone basically all day with that cutter as well. Got 4 called strikes on that pitch. But he induces contact. He wants soft contact, and that's what he's going to get. I mean, he averaged 85 miles per hour, the exit velocity against him on Friday, because he's just jamming guys, getting pop-ups, getting slow grounders, and getting some strikeouts when they come to him. And I'm just really impressed with Tyler Wells. And again, he's not going to crazy dominate you where he strikes out 10, 11, 12 guys, but he's going to stay efficient. And sometimes that means he's in the zone a little too much. We saw it in his last start when he gave up 4 runs. Sometimes he's just in the zone a little bit too much, and he'll give up a couple homers, a couple extra base hits. But Friday was kind of that perfect in-between where he was in the zone just enough, but he got guys to chase some to get to the strikeouts. If they're getting that from Tyler Wells, I mean, things are looking up for the Orioles pitching staff. But he wasn't, really the only star of that game, although it really did feel like. I mean, the Orioles offense, which struggled offensively in those 2 games against the Nationals, just 5 runs in those 2 games. Luckily, they pitched 2 shutouts. They were basically kind of doing nothing. It was a 0-0 game when Wells leaves, 7th inning stretch. And the Tigers were kind of dominating them. I mean, Michael Lorenzen, 5 scoreless, Chasen Shreve threw a good inning, but finally, Austin Hayes getting the job done in the 7th inning, blasting a home run to center field, 106 off the bat, 413 feet off of Tigers reliever Jose Cisnero. And it put the O's up 1-0. Brian Baker was just absolutely fabulous again in the 8th inning to keep it at a 1-0 game. He's just kind of rolling along right now for the Orioles. I mean, he went out there and got 4 whiffs on 8 swings and just was dealing everything on Friday night. But the offense isn't going, and so they go to the 9th. They're up 1-0. They turn to Felix Bautista. It's a 1-run game, but you're feeling good. But Bautista, again, just the splitter command was not there. And because of it, he kind of hangs a splitter to the first batter, Akil Baddoo, on 0-2. He singles. And this is something we've known Bautista has struggled with for a little bit. He just can't control runners. He's way too slow to the plate. And with the new rules in place, guys are just going to steal on him. So Baddoo easily steals second. Bautista does get it to 2 outs, but again, hangs another splitter, this one to Javi Baez, who laces it into left field for a game-tying RBI single. Now, luckily, Bautista kept it at 1-1. And then you go to the bottom of the 9th, where the Orioles, offense had been quiet for a few days now, and you're thinking, how are they going to rally at this point? Can they get something going? You got Jason Foley out there, for the Tigers, but they get a couple of singles, perfect hit and run put on by Santander and Mountcastle. You get runners on 1st and 3rd. And then I know a lot of Orioles fans have complained about the contact play over the past few years. What the contact play is that when you have a runner on 3rd with less than 2 outs, you're saying any ball that's hit on the ground, you are going no matter what. So ball in the air, you're going to freeze, but ball on the ground, you're going to go no matter what, and you're going to force the infield to make a play at home plate. Now, it hasn't worked out a lot for the Orioles. A lot of teams have made really good plays at home against them over the last 2 seasons. But this is why the contact play is a thing. Because when you force a shaky defensive team like the Tigers to make a play, Sometimes they don't. And with runners on first and third and one out, Adam Frazier hits a chopper to first base. Spencer Torkelson was playing in, so he got to this ball quickly, but he makes a bad throw home. And Ryan Mountcastle, who said after the game, he's got sneaky speed, gets down the line quickly. The throw is to the wrong side of home plate. Mountcastle slides in safely, and there's your second walk-off win of the year for the Orioles. They win it 2-1. And listen, the offense wasn't good, but it was fun to see them kind of manufacture something to win that game on Friday night. But then you move to Saturday, where things honestly did get a little bit easier for the Orioles. They got a couple of big hits early in the game, and they got a start from Kyle Gibson that was almost as good as what Tyler Wells put out there on Friday night. We'll break down Gibson and why this was one of the best starts of his career coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. One of the coolest games that I've ever downloaded on my phone, a game that I just continue to play because it makes you feel like you could be a Major League GM. It gives you a chance to try out your skills. Can you be a Major League GM? Answer for me, I can. Now, I'm going to criticize or compliment Mike Elias on this podcast, but I know I couldn't be a baseball GM, and Pro Baseball GM has showed that to me. It's better than fantasy baseball, though. It's better than MLB The Show because you're managing everything on a team, hiring staff, managing finances, scouting, drafting players, managing personalities, going through free agency and the trade deadline. You do it all, and it's a realistic game world. Plus, the game is completely free. You can play offline. You play on the go. It doesn't drain your battery. It's got everything you need. And Orioles fans, you're going to want to check out this game. You can also compete against me, compete against other Orioles fans as well. And Locked On Orioles listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com. Scan the code or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. So after the Orioles got the walk-off win on Friday night, they turned things over to Saturday. And Saturday was actually a little bit easier, it felt like, for the Orioles. And it starts with Kyle Gibson, who was almost as good Saturday as Tyler Wells was on Friday. Kyle Gibson goes 6 1/3 innings for the Orioles on Saturday night, allowing just 1 run on 2 hits. He strikes out 11 batters while walking 3. The only run he allowed was a solo shot hit by Zach McKinstry in the 7th inning with 1 out. It was the last batter that Gibson faced. He threw 96 pitches down to a 3.60 ERA for him on the season. Just 5 hard hit balls against Gibson. 11 strikeouts tied a career high for Kyle Gibson. He is 35 years old. He has been pitching in the big leagues for a long time now. It's hard to, at 35, when your last couple years haven't been the absolute best years of your career, to match a career high in strikeouts. But the Orioles have figured out something here with Kyle Gibson, and he showed it on Saturday night. Now, once again, it was mixing pitches, but what was interesting was he basically didn't throw the 4-seam fastball. It's not like he throws it a lot anyway, but he threw 96 pitches, and one of them was 4-seamers. It was 30 sinkers. That was the most used pitch, 23 sweepers, 22 changeups, 13 cutters, and 7 curveballs. And it's going to be the kitchen sink approach, except for the fact that he had 1, you could argue even 2 pretty elite pitches on Saturday night. Let's talk about the sweeper. This is the new pitch, the pitch that has taken over baseball, the sweeping slider. Gibson added it to his repertoire last year, late in the year with the Phillies. Some of his struggles in September with Philadelphia were because he was kind of experimenting with that pitch a little bit and it wasn't going well. He fine-tuned it this offseason. Gibson throws 23 sweepers on the day. Now, only one of them was a called strike. Some of them did go way out of the zone. But when he was around the strike zone, that pitch was unhittable on Saturday. 12 swings on the sweeper, 8 swings and misses. 8 swings and misses on that sweeper on 12 swings. 67% whiff rate. That is ridiculous. Got a good chunk of the 11 strikeouts on that pitch. He commanded it just well enough to get the outs that he needed. It was fun. I mean, that thing was moving. Tigers hitters had no chance against it. And then he could back it up because he was throwing his fastballs for strikes, specifically the sinker. He threw 30 sinkers on the day. 15 of them were called strikes. 15 of those sinkers called strikes. That is a chunky number of called strikes for one pitch. And it was just sinker in the zone, sinker in the zone. Got a lot of strikeouts, kind of running that sinker backdoor on the outside corner to right-handed hitters. It was working for him all day. Got a couple of ground balls with it as well. Not as much as he probably would have wanted. But then you look at the changeup. And the changeup, he threw 22 of those, 10 swings, 5 whiffs. That's a really good number as well. That thing was dropping off the table. I don't think we're going to see that kind of stuff from Kyle Gibson every time he goes out there. But the sinker sweeper changeup combination was pretty much unhittable. And then his cutter was good. I mean, he only threw 13 cutters, but he got 2 whiffs, he got 4 called strikes. It was like a helpful pitch to kind of lay into the zone when he needed one. That mix was ridiculous. Sinker, sweeper, changeup, cutter. All 4 pitches were really good. I mean, were really, really good for Kyle Gibson. You could argue this is one of the best starts of Gibson's career. I mean, that's how good he was. 34 swings Gibson induced on Saturday night. He got 18 swings and misses on 34 swings. That is a 53% whiff rate overall, which is kind of unheard of, especially for a pitcher in Kyle Gibson, who's not really known as a swing and miss artist. He's more of a ground ball guy, throw different stuff, get you to hit soft contact kind of guy. This was like watching a different pitcher on the mound. And again, I don't think we're going to see this every 5 days from Kyle Gibson, but so far on the Orioles' decision to decline Jordan Lyles' option and instead basically give that same amount of money to Kyle Gibson for 1 year, it is working out. Now, Jordan Lyles hasn't been horrible for the Royals, but Kyle Gibson has been everything the Orioles have wanted so far as kind of the veteran in this rotation. And now, I mean, he pitched like an ace on Saturday night. Give me that 10 more times. Now, the Orioles offense, they did give him a little bit more help. But what I will say is the Orioles were kind of lucky to put across 5 runs in this game, if we're being honest. They got a 4-run third, which was really the difference off of Tiger starter Joey Wentz, who allowed 5 runs over 4 innings. Wentz, who dominated the Orioles when he faced them last September. That was not the case in this one, but it was nice to see the O's just kind of put things together in that 3rd inning. And, you know, they got themselves the big hit was from Ramon Arias, bases clearing double in that inning to make it a 4-0 game. Then James McCann in the 4th added his first Oriole home run, a solo shot, 107 off the bat, 398 feet into the bullpen to make it 5-0. But there really wasn't a lot of loud contact in this game. I mean, the Ramon Arias double was smoked. The James McCann homer was smoked. And Ryan Mountcastle hit a single pretty hard earlier in that inning. But the Orioles only had 5 hard hit balls in 8 innings of that entire game. It can be difficult to score 5 runs on 6 hits and only have 5 hard hit balls. I mean, James McCann had 2 of them. He was the only guy with multiple on the day. It was not a great offensive performance. Now, they still came up with 5 runs, which is good enough to win a lot of games. But it wasn't great approaches at the plate, but they still got through. And listen, 5 runs was enough because after Gibson dominated, we got to see the Yennier Cano show. I mean, this guy is unreal. Unreal. Yennier Cano comes in for Kyle Gibson after Gibson gives up the solo shot to Zach McKinstry with 1 out in the 7th, makes it a 5-1 game. Yennier Cano comes in and just retires all 5 batters he faces with 3 strikeouts. Only took him 19 pitches, just ridiculous stuff. And Yennier Cano has now retired all 17 batters that he has faced so far this season. That is unheard of. He also threw 7 changeups. He got 3 swings on it. All 3 were swings and misses. They literally did not make contact with his changeup on Saturday night. Cano has still retired or recorded more outs, 18, than batters faced, 17. Because remember, the first batter he faced all year was in that game, that Friday night game against the White Sox, where he came in and immediately induced a double play to end the inning. So he's gotten 18 outs, and he's only faced 17 batters, yet he's retired all 17 batters. This dude's ridiculous. Danny Coulombe came in and finished the game off, and the Orioles took the series on Saturday night. But they still had their eyes on the sweep on Sunday, because when you got a team like the Tigers, although it was coming in playing well, Tigers had won 5 of 6 coming into the series. The Orioles had lost 5-6 to the Tigers last year. They didn't want that to happen. And they really wanted their first 3-game sweep of the year. It was tough. They had to grind it out, but they got it done on Sunday. And a lot was because of what Grayson Rodriguez was able to do in his 4th career start. We'll tell you how he did it, getting through 5 scoreless innings, coming up after this. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Now, getting to know yourself, it can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and we're always changing. Things are always changing in our lives, whether we know it or not. And therapy is about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk through things. Well, BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. Now, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist. You can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So you can discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB to get 10% off your first month when you send that in today. That's BetterHelp, help, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Built Bar. Because if you're looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar and the calories, then you need to try Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. And I like to make some healthy snack choices at times, and Built Bar is just right for me. They're healthy and they taste amazing. Seriously, this is the first really good tasting protein bar I've ever had. They really do taste like candy bars. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They've got these amazing, amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. And I'm not sure how they do it, because you feel like you're eating a candy bar, but it's only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get yourself a box. You can go to Walmart or Sam's Club, and you can still get specialty flavors at Built.com, but you can now get those classic flavors at Walmart and Sam's Club. That's right. Walmart, Sam's Club, head in, get some cookies and cream, some double chocolate, or whatever you like. You get a 13-bar box, a 4-bar box, whatever. And you can also still go to Built.com to get your hands on those delicious and nutritious Built Bars. So with the Orioles having taken the first 2 games of the series, 2-1 with a walk-off Friday, 5-1 the winner on Saturday, they were going for the sweep on Sunday. And they were sending the rookie sensation Grayson Rodriguez to the hill for his 4th major league start. Now, the first thing we were all worried about was what's going to happen in the first inning. Because in his 3 first innings, I guess is the best way to say that, he had given up 7 earned runs in his first 3 starts. That wasn't very good. And he had walked the leadoff batter in his start in all 3 starts. So it was nice that even though he gave up a leadoff single to Akil Baddoo in the first inning of this game Sunday, it was very nice that it was not a leadoff single, or a leadoff walk, I should say. You know, it was better the fact that Rodriguez turned around and struck out the next 3 batters. So first of all, he has crossed 2 thresholds already in the first inning of Sunday's game. Number 1, don't walk the leadoff batter. Number 2, put up a 0 in the first inning. That's exactly what he did. Then things did get a little dicey for him. Got dicey in the second, got out of a jam, got dicey in the third with the bases loaded. Ryan McKenna made a nice play on a line drive to get him out of a jam. Settled down a little bit more, had a really good 4th, really good 5th. And once again, it showed that he's continuing to get better as starts go along. Even though he didn't give up any runs, especially not early in the game, he got better as it went along. And Grayson's 4th start looked like this: 5 scoreless innings, 5 hits, 6 strikeouts to 3 walks, 92 pitches, lowering his ERA to 5.12 on the season. Now, he did allow 7 hard hit balls on the day, and he definitely got some help from his defense throughout his 5 innings of work. And you don't really want to run your pitch count up to 92 through just 5 innings. You would have liked for him to at least come out there and pitch to 6 scoreless. But what he did do is get out of some jams, stay focused, not let a tough inning turn into a big inning, still put up the zeros. And I got to be honest with you, I felt like of the 4 starts so far for Grayson Rodriguez, this was where his stuff looked the worst. His fastball velo was a little bit down. He was averaging 96, whereas he's mostly averaged 97 throughout the year. He only got 9 whiffs, which was a season low. 5 came on the four-seam fastball, but only 1 on the slider and 2 on the changeup. He mixed, the four-seam fastball used a lot. Then he mixed slider, changeup, curveball pretty well, threw in a couple of cutters in there. Now, he was around the strike zone enough, but it seemed like he was fighting something a little mechanical, especially in the middle innings. He was missing with some curveballs, especially like 3 feet above the zone. Like, it was getting bad for a while with that curveball, but he found a way to throw 5 scoreless innings. And again, I get it. It's the Tigers lineup. It's the same thing we talked about with playing the Nationals Tuesday and Wednesday. Like, these are 2 of the 5 worst lineups in Major League Baseball, the Tigers and the Nats. I get that. But they're still Major League hitters, and you still got to get them out, especially when, as I think on Sunday, Grayson Rodriguez did not have his best stuff, but he still got them out. And that's what matters at the end of the day. And you look up, and it's the first time he's put up a 0 in an entire start. So you will take that. So you think, all right, he got through the first inning issue. Now, if you can put that together with the let's get that really good stuff he had in Chicago after the first inning, your eyes get wide and you think, this could get really, really good for Grayson Rodriguez as we move on here. Good thing is, his next start, he's going to get to face the Tigers again in Detroit next weekend. So that's always going to help him out as well. But again, I thought the stuff wasn't amazing, but he just went out there and he threw fastballs by hitters because he knew, even though he was a tick down on the fastball, he knew they couldn't catch up to it. And the changeup was his friend a couple of times, and the slider was his friend a couple of times. But generally, he did just enough to get through 5 scoreless. And the Orioles had a fairly rested bullpen on Sunday. Again, they got 7 from Tyler Wells Friday, 6 1/3 from Gibson. On Saturday, they had an off day Thursday, so very rested in the pen. So they knew, okay, we get 5 strong from Grayson. Let's empty out the bullpen. Let's get this win. And that is what they did because, again, the offense just didn't do anything in this game. Now, shout out to Eduardo Rodriguez. He was certainly doing something. The former Orioles prospect, he was perfect through 6 2/3. And honestly, it was pretty easy. He struck out 6 over 7 scoreless innings. Luckily for the Orioles, Ryan Mountcastle with 2 outs in the 7th, big time battle, lines a 1-2 pitch into left field for a base hit, breaks up the perfect game and the no-hitter. So it was nice that the O's didn't have to deal with that on Sunday. But Rodriguez was nasty, but then the O's got to the bullpen. They got Rodriguez out there. I still can't believe the Tigers pulled Eduardo at 95 pitches after 7 innings. He was so good, he should have went back out there. But he didn't, and the Orioles struck. Jorge Mateo, with 1 out in the 8th inning, back from the hip injury, gets himself on base with a single. They bring up Anthony Santander as a pinch hitter for Ryan McKenna with 2 outs. And Santander gets an 0-2 pitch from Chasen Streve, lines it down the left field line. And I honestly could not believe it that Jorge Mateo scored on that ball from first. That ball did not make it into the corner. It bounced off the sidewall. Akil Baddoo in left field fielded it well in from the actual left field wall. Kind of a bad throw to the cutoff man, and then the throw home wasn't great. And Mateo, with that great speed, slides in safely to tie the game. And the Orioles couldn't score anymore. They tied it at 1, and it was nice to see Felix Bautista come back and get a 1-2-3 ninth. And then they get the walk-off in the 10th. But before they could even have a chance to get that walk-off, I mean, you got to shout out to the Orioles bullpen. It was very rested, so Brandon Hyde had a lot of options. And after Rodriguez left, you get a scoreless inning from Mike Baumann. You get 2 outs from Brian Baker. Now, Cionel Perez did give up the only run. He was bad again. 2 outs, 2 hits, and a run on just 5 pitches, just kind of laying the ball down the middle. I'm really concerned about Cionel Perez. But Austin Voth came in, and even though he did give up the sac fly on the first pitch that gave the Tigers a 1-0 lead in the 8th, he got 2 key outs to keep it a 1-0 game. Felix Bautista in the 9th, 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts. And then how about Keegan Aiken, who hadn't pitched in 10 days, was back from the paternity list. And Keegan Aiken comes out there in the 10th with the zombie runner on second in a 1-run game, gets a ground out, issues an intentional walk, gets a strikeout, issues another intentional walk to load the bases, and then gets a pop out to keep the Tigers scoreless. And it sets it up for the 10th, where the Orioles can come out there and try to win the game. And listen, the Tigers defense helped out the Orioles a lot in that walk-off. Start the inning with Terrin Vavra pinch hitting, gets down a bunt. Adam Frazier goes to third with 1 out. And they bring the infield in. They put 5 infielders in there, and it takes literally 1 pitch from Mason Englert that Jake Rogers, the catcher for the Tigers, just did a terrible job of trying to block, gets far enough away that Adam Frazier scampers home and slides in safely under the tag. Orioles' second walk-off win in 3 days over the weekend. They win it 2-1. They sweep the series. They get to 14-7. And I think the big takeaways from the weekend were starting pitching amazing, bullpens rounding it out, and the offense is in a little bit of a rut right now. But they found a way to win games. I mean, Adley Rutschman, this weekend, I mean, the man did almost nothing. He was 2 for 3 with a walk and an RBI on Saturday. That was good. He went 0 for 4 Friday and Sunday. I mean, they weren't getting a lot from their big bats at all this weekend. And you find a way to sweep a series. That is huge for the Orioles. And next up, they try to keep the winning streak going. It's 6 straight wins for the O's, and they will try to make it 7 tonight. Now, that 22-game stretch I talked about against, teams, this is the best team they're going to play in that stretch. The only team with a winning record, it's the Boston Red Sox, who just had a really fun back-and-forth series where they split with the Milwaukee Brewers. Red Sox are in last place right now. They're 12-11, looking up at the second-place Orioles. And in Game 1 tonight, a 6:35 start, it'll be a rematch of the second game of the season in Boston. Chris Sale goes for the Red Sox. He's got an 8 ERA on the year. His stuff still looks Chris Sale-like, but man, he's gotten hit around a lot this season. He still has 30 strikeouts in 18 innings, but giving up a lot of runs. But his last start was great against the Twins. 6 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts for Chris Sale. Now remember, the Orioles did get to him on that second game of the year. 3 innings, 7 runs, 7 hits, 3 homers for the O's. They hope to do that again. But it's Dean Kramer going for the Orioles, and he got hit around by the Red Sox in that same game. Kramer with a 6.16 ERA through 4 starts this year. Did throw 6 2/3 scoreless against the Nats during the week, but that first start against the Red Sox, 3 innings, 5 runs, 6 hits, and 2 home runs. Let's hope that game, or this game tonight, doesn't go the way that game went, because, that was the game with the Ryan McKenna ending. We don't want that. We want a 7th straight Orioles win. But whether or not it is, I'll be back with you on the pod tomorrow, recapping Game 1 between the Orioles and the Red Sox. We'll see if the O's can keep the winning streak alive. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.